Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer. This is the Evolution of Movies show, and I am joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Andy Rossi and James Chippy. Fellas, how you doing, James? Andy, I know you just got back from Mexico.
I did, and I got to give a shout out to my travel partner, Tony Fricano, who's, in my opinion, our #1 fan. He reads his comments and loves the show, so... Tony, love you, buddy.
Shout out to Tony. Very appreciated, Tony. Thank you for being a part of the show. James, any notes before we move on? Who's your favorite fan?
Who's my favorite fan besides my mother?
Yeah,
Alini. She's my favorite. My son's my favorite, for now.
For now.
Actually, I'm his second favorite because, like I said, the baby spends more time with their mom. So, whenever the dad takes over, it's like, oh, you okay? Well, I'm kind of I'm kind of the bench player, when it's time to take care of the little man.
Well, thank you to everyone who's watching the show. If you're new to the show, we talk about movies, kind of like a book club, but we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So we start a movie. We start with 1990, then 91 and 92. Now we're in 2013. That means next week we go to 2014. But for now, we're talking about 2013, a time when movie theaters had hits like Man of Steel, The Wolverine, and of course, Delivery Man starring Vince Vaughn. But we aren't talking about any of those. We're talking about World War Z, a movie IMDb breaks down as former United Nations employee Jerry Lane traverses the world in a race against time to stop a zombie pandemic that is toppling armies and governments and threatens to destroy humanity itself. This got a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes, beating 2012's Safe House rating of 53%. James, had you seen World War Z before it came out? And what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
Wow, rubbing it in that it did better than Safe House with the critics. Very nice dig in the morning, Jack.
Yes. Good morning. Welcome to Thanks for being on the show again, James.
No problem. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen World War Z before. This was a huge movie when it came out. I mean, It was big. I remember going to the theater, and the thing we'll also talk about is how this movie was also it was big in the pop culture of everything, as it was originally a book from I can't think. Yeah, Max Brooks. Yeah. There you go. Attaboy. Yeah, Max Brooks, who is was it Albert Brooks? Or
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, excuse me. Okay, it's early in the morning. Let me just carry on.
I don't know how I'm doing this.
Right?
I feel like
you just finish every sentence for me, Andy.
You guys complete each other.
That's all I got, though. I think I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. But Mel Brooks' son, Max Brooks, wrote World War Z, and when they filmed this movie, they had to go through a huge amount of rewrites and reshoots, and it was not cheap. It was in millions and millions of dollars. So the big thing was, when this movie came out, you wanted to see, is this movie going to be any good? Because basically people were concerned about that. And, I actually thought it's a great film, all things considered. When you hear about all the stuff it went through, this is a good action-packed zombie film that you don't normally see, like the combination of those two genres. But I think this is an action movie that also has zombies in it. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Andy, now you have the World War Z album there for the people watching on YouTube. You saw there. Brad Pitt, was he too handsome to be this guy in this movie? Come on. Fighting people, looking like that.
In the book, there is no his character is not in the book. So I think it was a great move to be like, hey, you know how we have all those characters in the book? Forget them. Let's bring Brad Pitt in and his beautiful long hair. Right. I mean, obviously, as a Brad Pitt fanboy, I thought it was great to have him lead a movie. Like, you know what? If you think about it, Brad Pitt a lot of times is kind of like the supporting role, and he comes in as like the charismatic, co-lead or something. Like if you think of Ocean's 11 or even, 7, he's the lead, but he's got, Morgan Freeman and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's got Leo, Spy Game. But this one, he's the lead. and it was cool to see Brad Pitt as like the leading man. He's all business, but man, is he beautiful.
Yeah, I remember seeing this movie when it came out in theaters, and James, to your point, yeah, this was the first time that that I can think of that the zombie movie, it was an action zombie movie, and I think that's what made it stand out to me is that there are definitely zombie tropes to it, but this is basically just all out action in this movie. It's fast paced. The zombies seem smarter and stronger and faster than what you see in typical zombie movies. I think Dawn of the Dead, I think the remake was the first running zombie movie. But
they were so fast. Like I was actually, this is such a stupid thought, but I was like, they should put them in the Olympics.
The zombie Olympics.
Zombies took first, second, and third this year. Usain Bolt fourth.
Right. Yeah, they seem stronger than humans. This was the fact that the zombies seem capable is what made this movie stand out to other zombie movies, though. The fact that they almost work together in certain times, we'll talk about it as we get to them climbing the walls and things like that. But the approach felt different, which made the whole thing very fun. And so I was excited to get to watch it again. And plus, I know that we're recording this around Halloween time, so I thought it would be fun to watch during this time.
I should be Jerry Lane for Halloween.
Oh, you wish
I could pass, right? Hey, screw you guys.
Maybe you look more like one of the Who doctors at the end.
Oh, well, thank you. I thought you were going to say like one of the zombies.
The zombie Who doctor, the one at the very end.
Which is Doctor Who, right?
Yeah, there is I was going to say there is a Doctor Who doctor.
Doctor Who doctor.
That doesn't make sense. But so before we get into it, as always, thank you everyone who's watching, listening, commenting, subscribing, sharing, 5-star reviewing. Always appreciated. Let's start with the movie, though. We start with news agencies talking about some virus in a way that seems eerily similar to real life before some kids wake up Brad Pitt on a standard day. Always a bad sign. On a trip to work or school or wherever it was they were going, it doesn't really matter because the movie throws us right into the chaos. A car chase, a car accident, pandemonium. Zombies are everywhere running amok. The family steals an RV and gets out of Philadelphia. James, this movie does not pull punches. It starts from this. It says, look, we're in it. We're in the thick of it. Explain to me as the family escapes Philadelphia in the RV and everything before that, the world we live in and the characters that we are seeing.
Okay, so in film, you have like an inciting incident, right? And you normally that's supposed to come if you're going off of script writing, within the first 12, 15, 12 minutes, 12th page. This movie, I didn't look at the timestamp, but after the long credits, right, which were pretty cool. It's a great song. I'm sure Andy was like rocking out to that beginning credit song.
Yeah,
they get straight to it. I mean, they don't. Most movies like this, you'll kind of maybe do a slow build. We'll find out a little bit about the characters. We find out enough, because Brad Pitt is basically said, oh, the kind of work you used to do. Now he's the stay-at-home dad that makes pancakes, but he's very masculine though, with his two daughters and his wife, and they're going somewhere on a road trip or something. And I mean, 5 minutes in, they get stuck in some traffic jam in New York, I believe, right? It's New York City.
Philadelphia.
Oh, Philly. Okay, it's Philadelphia. You're right. So it's in Philadelphia. And like I said, I mean, you've got traffic jam, you've got the police get talking to them, and all of a sudden it gets hit by a truck. And then now we know the movie's really starting, right? And you can also hear in the background people talking about there's a rabies outbreak somewhere. You have to really pay attention, but they're doing a lot of diegetic sound with radio updates, TV updates. Something's not right, but this family's just kind of living their life.
What was that word? Diegetic?
Diegetic. Yeah, that's a big SAT word.
There
you go.
Yeah, Andy, if you read the book instead of listened to it, you might know it.
Right? But I think, as you guys say, the great thing about a film like this, which it was a summertime blockbuster film, you don't have time for all that. And they fill in all the blanks as we're going along and we're thrown into the action. And when you're watching a film like this, which I believe it's around the 2 hour mark, it goes by quickly. And that's all you ask for when you're watching like a popcorn movie like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned, because it's totally accurate. It's like they give you just enough to matter. Like, it doesn't really, I don't really need to know what Brad Pitt's actual job was. Just tell me enough that I know, okay, he's a tough guy. You know, I don't really need to know like where they're going. I don't need to know that they have after school activities and things like that. Just, okay, he used to be the guy, he quit, now boom, zombies. I don't need to see the slow spread. Just give me what I want, is what I say. Give me the violence. Just Andy Rossi. So how did you like the start of this one?
I mean, yeah, it's great. Like James said, you just jump right into the action. And I think they do a great job of like with Brad Pitt, he's kind of being the audience for us. Like I like the part how I think it's like a toy that's like counting down, how long it takes to turn into the zombie. And I think it's 12 seconds. So I think it's cool to establish the rules like that. Like we're finding out the same time he's finding out. And a lot of these like zombie movies, it's like they find out this through like, if they're traveling, they'll meet other people and they'll be like, I hear it takes 12 seconds for them to turn. And you're like, okay. But here we're like finding out together. And we're also finding out how fast they are and how quickly, chaos ensues. And it's so crazy. It's such a crazy scene. Like James said, with the cop, it's like, all right, everybody stay here. Boom. He's smashed. And then Brad Pitt's mirror gets knocked off. So yeah, it's super crazy. And then when they get to the, I think, are they in a grocery store? In that beginning
the
part,
grocery store.
Yeah.
When they're trying to get the asthma medicine, right?
That's
For
after they leave. That's the next.
after.
Yeah.
That's the next
Yeah.
thing. And I guess we can kind of break that down. One of the kids is having an asthma attack, and Brad Pitt's old boss says that they need him back to work for them. By the way, flippantly, just hearing someone say we lost Boston, they get
Yeah.
they get asthma
It's
medication and are
gone.
told they
No
need to
more Red
wait until
Sox.
sunrise to get an evac. They stay the night with a nice family, and when they leave, the family chooses to stay, but it leads to their demise as Brad Pitt and family fight their way to the roof for a rooftop evac. As the boy from the family saves Brad Pitt, and we learn getting blood in your mouth isn't a deal breaker as they are helicoptered away. Andy, I want to go back to you because you were talking about that scene with the convenience store, and I want to hear your thoughts on that and how not to make things too real, but how it wasn't too far off in a lot of ways with missing toilet paper at grocery stores when things got a little crazy.
I was thinking that COVID is bad, right? But I was like, well, I'd rather have COVID than turn into a zombie. Like it was just like so crazy. But when they're at the pharmacy, I thought that was a crazy good scene though, because it showed like the panic. Everybody's in there, everybody's grabbing stuff. And I really thought the part was cool when the cop comes in, because Brad Pitt like puts his hands up and then the cop's like, no, fuck, I'm just trying to run and grab some stuff as well. No, don't worry. Because Pitt,
he's grabbing like baby food, or something like that, which is like,
everybody's just getting stuff.
Which really shows, like, to me, that was like not only just a fun, like an interesting thing to do, but really shows that society has collapsed. Like there is no law and order. It is gone now. And it is literally everyone for themselves. James, this was interesting because they get their first breather with the family they're staying with, and they get along well. But this is kind of, I think it's interesting because they have that moment where as a viewer, you're always thinking, do you hide and sort of shelter down and try to wait it out, or do you go out and try to find help? What do you do? And the family was posed that question: stay in the apartment, stay quiet, and hope this passes, or move. They made their choice. Let's chat about it.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, overnight everything was fine, right? Like, and they're thinking we're home. What are the chances? They have not been out yet, I'm assuming. So at all. So yeah, they're overnight. And as soon as, it's so scary with movies like this. I feel like it puts the audience in, oh, what would I do if I was in that situation, right? And that's kind of the thrill of seeing movies like this, especially when societies are like, when there's chaos and you know, society is kind of falling, especially like in horror films or certain action films and stuff. But yeah, it's just so hard. It's so gut wrenching that, I mean, they hadn't been gone 5 minutes. He locks the door, and all of a sudden you're seeing like these things trying to break in. It's like, oh my God, like that's so scary. They're in a high rise too, so it's not like they're at the bottom floor and maybe they can go out the window if they don't see anyone. You know, like they got
That's
nowhere
the scariest.
to go.
The zombies can climb.
Oh my goodness, yes, they can
so
climb.
even if there's a fire escape, and the way the zombies are so reckless and fast, they're gonna go faster than you because they don't care if they lose their grip and fall.
Yeah.
So you're not going to outrun them. Even if you go on the fire escape, you're getting caught.
You are, definitely. But it's also kind of the dread and everything when Brad Pitt takes his family to remember, like, okay, just follow dad and this and that, and then he opens the door to like darkness, and then it just so happens because his gun is pointed that way with the knife that it impales one of the zombies, and boom, they got to rush out. And the crazy thing is, Tomas, you love that he escaped and he's able to get on the helicopter with them, but the dad is there, like almost getting Brad Pitt, almost getting the family. And it's just like, these are real things. Because a lot of times we see zombie movies, you know, they're zombies. They don't have like any personality. They're nondescript. But when we see who they were before, it's even more gut wrenching because that was someone's father.
Sorry, I just laughed about a zombie with a personality.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, he's a zombie, but he's a pretty nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
Got a nice personality.
Right? Just brightens a room. But yeah, that's the first time we see a person that you know, and that's one of the dark sides of zombies. Is it's not just random monsters; they're people you know, and they are your friends and family. You have to fight off and deal with, and James, to your point, definitely a what would I do moment. Now we know the answer, but just real quick, would you have stayed in the apartment or would you have left? I think if not knowing any better, I think I would have stayed.
Well, if Brad Pitt was in my apartment, I'm following him. I mean, if he's saying, look, there's a helicopter, I'm CIA, former CIA, follow me, then he does the thing with his hair. Well, we know Andy would have went with him.
I just did a flat iron to my hair.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, this was an actual important thing, though. He did get the blood in his mouth. He runs to the edge of the building like, hey, if I turn, that
was a great scene.
Push me off. But it does give us some information. What I like about this movie, too, as opposed to other zombie movies, is you can see the detective work of them trying to figure out what this is. And him basically, okay, well, it's not their blood that turns you.
So we could start eating that.
Yeah, so drink up, fellas.
I got it in my mouth. I remember him saying that. I was like, remember he said that on the plane? I got it in my mouth.
I feel like I'd be like, water. Somebody give me water.
Yeah. Like a mouthwash.
So the helicopter takes them to a battleship, and they finally get a breather, and that's where we really start to hear how bad the world has it. The whole world is zombified, and they think they can make a vaccine if they get to the origin in South Korea. Pitt is told if he goes to Korea, his family can stay on the boat. If not, adios, family. So they take off, and the doctor is very optimistic about finding something and gives an analogy that Mother Nature is a serial killer while life on the boat gets a little testy. So before they land, and before we get into everything that happens in Korea, because that's its own thing, this was a fascinating scene to me. And James, I'll let you start with it. The doctor talking about Mother Nature, leaving breadcrumbs, leaving clues, and all this other stuff. This was a very important part of the movie.
Yeah, it was. And as you said, the good thing about Pitt's character, Jerry, what a great name, Jerry.
Jerry Lane sounds like the fakest name ever.
Jerry Lane. Well, no, it's Jerry.
And my name's Jack Farmer.
I know, and you sang that exactly. But Yeah, I think the thing that you mentioned is, yeah, he's constantly trying to figure it out. And he's our cipher for the audience. He's always looking for clues and stuff like that. They said Mother Nature. So, in the grand scheme of the film, all the clues kind of come together, by the third act. And he knows what, he has his suggestions. Of how to defeat this thing. And I don't know if we've gotten to the part where they touch down, right? You haven't even
No,
gotten
that's
to the
after.
plane
No,
part. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And we'll see there where it's even more put on him to help figure this out. But yeah, Mother Nature. And it's like the ingenuity of people, as we've always even seen with COVID this past year. Like, you have to kind of do what you do and find out things. I think I'm just kind of blabbering at this point.
No,
but,
yeah, but
you get my point,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. It's Mother Nature. So if it's Mother Nature, there's only so much you can do against it, and then it's like Mother Nature versus like our own human ingenuity to find out and go against it. I think that's kind of the thing
Yeah.
that he's pointing to.
Yeah, and it's again showing us that there is a solution to this that's not just shooting all the zombies in the head, as opposed, which is every other zombie movie, is you try to shoot them all in the head. This one, they're trying to tell us that there is definitely a way to beat it, and the big thing is its biggest weakness it usually describes as a strength, but that's the way to get it. Now, Andy, there was a very quick scene where it shows the kids on the boat getting food, and the people who are there aren't necessarily like, we're winning the war, guys. They seem very like, look, we're overcrowded, this boat's like too full of people. That's kind of a subplot in this movie that I thought was very interesting, that even if you are on the boat, like, how much food is there, what's going on there? And I thought that was an interesting aspect to add to the story.
Yeah, they definitely weren't very prepared. And I thought it was interesting when Pitt and his family got there, all those other people were on the phone, and a lot of people on the phone were saying, sorry, we cannot get you. We cannot evacuate you. We can't, help you. And I just thought that was pretty interesting too, because like, oh, then Pitt is very important, as a part of this. But, like they said, they're like, you're important, but your family, we kind of don't need them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty intense.
Non-essential.
I was thinking that was the one thing about the family, before we get to that last part, is I felt like they could have tried to do a little bit more to be essential on that boat. Like, if I was her, I feel like I would have been saying, can I clean up? Can I do something?
Yeah.
What can I do so that you don't want me to get
My
off
daughter's a
this boat?
singer.
Now my daughter can sing. That is just good.
Yeah, I'm verified
Yeah.
on Twitter. Can you keep me on the boat?
Verified on Twitter. At least I can reach out to the Twitterverse.
You guys want to do some improv exercises?
I will say this too. It's funny you mentioned that, and I know it's Brad Pitt's film. I felt that I can't. I don't know how to pronounce the actress's name. Marilia Enos. She was in she was in a show called The Killing, which is like one of my favorite crime shows. Set in Seattle. So shout out there. It's really good.
Seattle.
Yep. He's got her and Captain Flag in it, Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah,
but
from last week.
I feel like she may have been a little unused in the film, considering how good of an actor she is. And maybe, if it was written differently, I get it because it's Brad's film. But once the family gets there, there's not much they're doing at that point. She's just making phone calls here and there and looking concerned and, and all that kind of stuff, and handing the phone off to Theory. Like,
I totally thought that. And I just watched this documentary recently about the movie Aliens with Sigourney Weaver, and how like badass female character, fighting the aliens. So I was kind of even thinking that in this one. I'm like, she totally, I agree with you. She could have been like kind of more badass.
I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe a lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. Like, I heard there's a whole thing with the guy from Lost who was in like one quick moment.
Yeah, Matthew Fox.
Who was there for the evac, and then he's nowhere else in the movie. I heard he actually had a big, like, her and him had a big
wow,
like connection, and like they were gonna have like a romance or something.
Right. You're kidding.
No,
really?
Really? I could be mistaken, but I heard there was something like, the classic Brad's gone, who's there for her? It's him.
Oh, wow.
And, kind of one of those things. But,
okay, good thing they cut that, because I don't think the audience would be too glad. Brad's out there risking his life. His wife's getting her groove on. He's not even dead yet.
I could imagine Matthew Fox being like, or I can imagine the editors being like, no one's gonna believe this girl's leaving Brad Pitt.
Yeah. She's got to see the body first before
Yeah.
she moves on without him.
Yeah,
Okay?
no offense to Matthew Fox. He's a handsome
handsome
fella
guy.
too, but let's all be real about where Brad Pitt sits in the pecking order here.
Yeah. It lets you know how hot Brad Pitt is. That
I
he
mean,
makes Matthew Fox look like a dog.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
played
right?
Achilles for crying out
Yeah,
loud.
yeah. This is Tyler
He is
Durden we're talking
Achilles.
about.
I don't even know what Achilles looks like. I know he looks like Brad Pitt. I don't know
Yeah.
if Brad Pitt looks like him.
Somewhere on Mount Olympus, Achilles was like, "Sweet, Brad Pitt's playing."
Yes,
me."
nice. Oh God, the gods are great.
Yes.
The gods are great. Yes.
Meanwhile, he looks like Paul Giamatti in real life.
I know, right? Oh, poor Paul Giamatti. He keeps getting it. Great actor. Let's
Great
get that out the
actor.
way, Paul. You know.
So they get to the Korean base, and the doctor dies immediately. And the remaining soldiers get to the base, or in the base. They tell Brad Pitt about the virus and how it got to them. And the CIA guy says that in a cage, who was selling guns to North Korea, says North Korea pulled the teeth of all of its people to stop the spread. But he says in Jerusalem, they built a wall to keep their people safe. How did they know to build a wall? You got to go. So Pitt's wife calls him at the worst time, don't they always? And they fuel up the plane and are off to Jerusalem as they watch a nuke go off in the distance. Now, lots to unpack with this part of the movie. James, I want to start with you. Obviously, the one hope, the doctor, just dies right off the bat, which talk about pulling the rug out from underneath the viewer of how this is going to go. But they also show the burned room where the original infections took place.
Yeah, and let's just, RIP to that doctor. I mean, at least they set it up, but they didn't even wait a full 2 minutes for it to pay off. He says to the doctor, don't put your hand on the trigger, right? And you think, oh, okay, that's very subtle. And his doctor's been saying all these important things about Mother Nature, and he's the young upstart that's going to help solve this quandary that the planet is.
Slips on a banana peel.
And then he slips. It's like a banana peel slip. It's really weird. And then he just happens why didn't they just go full on with it and have him just stick the gun in his mouth when he fell down and, like blow the back of his head out? I mean, just go all the way with it.
Yeah.
But in that room, as you said, that burn room, that's when you kind of get into the lore of it. It gets very interesting. They're like, oh, and the thing I like about these kind of zombie films, some of them try to over-explain how it started. They're trying to explain here, but they really don't get down to the nitty-gritty of it. It started from here, we think. And that's kind of the thing when it comes to, as we know, anyone in this country or in this world of the past year and a half, that's how things can spread. You may not know the exact ground zero moment or source of it, but at that point, it almost doesn't matter. You just got to try and find something to combat it. And I love this thing. I mean, everything's set up perfectly. He called her first and they couldn't speak. So now she's obsessed with trying to call him back. And it's such great, a tense moment when they're on those bicycles that are already kind of squeaky as they're trying to get past the Zeeks, right? The Zeeks, I think.
Yes.
And it's so great because you have it almost as like a video game moment where you got the guy sniper. They're all sniping and talking in the ear and kind of doing commentary. It's kind of funny, but it's also like scary. And, obviously everyone, gets it, until it's this Brad Pitt who also can fly planes. Apparently, he can also co-pilot a plane.
Yeah,
and him and the other guy get out in out of Dodge.
Yeah, it's I love that there is such a mystery to it. And you're right. You mentioned the video game thing. I thought this whole movie felt very video game. It felt very, this is the South Korea level. This is the Philadelphia level. Level 1 is the Philadelphia level.
That's a good point.
The Jerusalem level. You could see it playing out that way. Andy, I want to talk a bit about the lore that James mentioned, the burn room, and how they talk about how this guy from somewhere had it and he bit someone else, and then before you know it, this whole room is infected, and they burn the whole thing. Of course, burning any evidence or records they have in the process, which feels so stupid. But at the same time, as the fan watching, you'd say, well, I would burn everyone, all of them, so that they don't come back to life. At the same time, it was to James' point about it making sense like the phone, I felt like this very much was a made sense way to kind of bury the past.
Yeah, and it's interesting because didn't they say like, yeah, we mentioned that there was zombies, whatever, 7 days ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like people were like, meh, it's probably nothing. But that part with the phone though was so crazy to me because she doesn't even realize when she makes the phone call. She's like, oh, I guess he's not picking up. I'm gonna go back to bed. Like, meanwhile, you don't know what you just did making that phone call. Like, I mean, literally, because of that phone call, like chaos ensues and it's just madness from there.
Yeah.
I did want to and I agree with you guys on the video game stuff. That whole scene was like super fun. But David Morse, the CIA agent in that cage, he was great. And I was kind of disappointed that we don't see him again because he was out of his mind, kind of like he usually is in most movies.
Right.
Are you with the CIA? Yes, but they are not with me. Such an interesting statement, the way he said it. And all his teeth were gone too, right, Andy? What was
he was insane. But I was like, oh, we're gonna see him again.
And I didn't want to bury the lead real quick, Jack. Another big thing was the big clue in there, and the guy, he replaced someone in Game of Thrones, Michael Heisman. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
You know, you got a whole bunch of good looking, like, 6'3" guys in this movie. He's one of them, but
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And there's a whole bunch of like faces you notice years later. People they've gone on in their careers, but the thing was, his situation gave us a big clue, another clue for Brad Pitt, because he had a huge limp, and they made the statement about, oh, well, this dude was in the middle of all that, and they just like passed him up. And now he's seeing his detective work is going to pay off. Why did they not try and kill and bite him? And he found out that this guy had a limp before. It's not that situation caused the limp. So forgot to mention that.
It was interesting when they first said that. I thought that he was bit, and that's why his leg was like that. And so when I was watching, I was like, oh, he's going to turn. That's going to be the thing. Because for them, they said it took like 12 minutes for people to turn as opposed to seconds, which is very interesting because, again, we know so much more about these kind of things in 2021 than we do when this movie came out. Like, it's possible there's variance. It's possible that there's this kind of version takes this long, this version takes this long. But it was also, what a fascinating thing. This is also where the CIA agent, again, another very important piece of information, it transfers through the bite that going with the. Now, as a viewer of these of zombie movies, that makes total sense to us. But if you're trying to put yourself in Brad Pitt's shoes, finding out that, oh, this is literally a bite. That's why the blood in the mouth doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It's being bitten by them that makes the change happen. And I like the truth of just like those guys, like, yeah, we emailed you guys. We told you there's zombies and no one listened, because no one would listen to that. I guarantee it. They'd all say they're crazy. So, but the interesting, speaking of people not listening, that takes us to the next part, and they kind of again build on that. They land in Jerusalem, and they say that the reason they knew to build the wall is that they intercepted a communique from India, and due to the idea called the 10th man, they treated the threat as real and built massive walls, which is great until all the singing attracts the zombies on the outside, and the zombies stack on each other until they overcome the top of the walls and flood the city. We get an incredible battle scene and a soldier being saved when she gets her arm cut off instead of turning and getting on a plane in the last second before the airport is overrun. I want to talk, and we'll talk with you, this idea called the 10th man. I think this was a fantastic way to play on the idea of why would they believe in zombies versus everyone else. And just kind of an interesting thing. If 9 people agree that it's the 10th man's job to see if something might be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that whole part was insane. Like, what I was kind of confused about is when those zombies start running up the wall, when the microphone feedback is happening, there's helicopters all around that wall. Like, were they not looking? Like, I felt like somebody should have been on that, been like, hey, those guys are getting pretty high. Okay, yeah, we should go take them out. Instead, it's Brad Pitt is the first one that notices. I just thought that was so stupid.
I honestly, with maybe this is just old DJ Jack Farmer coming in, but I was thinking, guys, fix the speakers. This sounds horrible. What are you doing?
Yeah, we would have heard that feedback and turned it down in a second.
Yeah, like, I mean, I get it, like, sing, but like, you're standing right in front of the speaker with the microphone, lady.
Yeah.
Figure this out. This doesn't
Yeah.
sound good. This, to me, something that stood out to me is I feel like when I think of this movie, and you can't, if you're watching the YouTube version, we have a picture of it in the back, but our mugs are covering it. But the vision of this movie that I was thinking about is the zombies stacking on each other.
Yeah.
This is the scene it happens. I feel like I remember it happening more than it did in this. Actually, it did in this movie. But this was really the scene where they almost become like a blob of zombie death, where there's like flooding the streets, almost moving like water, the way they're going around
like
corners.
A school of zombies.
Yeah, like a school of zombies. James, I thought this was the most intense of all the scenes and probably the most action-packed of the scenes. Jerusalem getting overrun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, this is as they say, it's a set piece, right? So this is a scene from the trailer. Like, we had, as film goers, we hadn't seen anything like that before. Not that mass amount of zombies just kind of building on each other, almost like ants or something, right? Like it's so scary. And once again, what would you do in that situation? And yes, once again, Brad Pitt is always, what's so funny about Brad Pitt's character in this movie? I get it, I buy it. But he's the only one, when everyone's running, he always kind of turns around and watches, while he's like, actually, he's one of the only people that can like backwards run. He's like always kind of running, but like his head's faced the other way. So
in a crowd without stepping on the back of someone's heels.
Yeah, he's not stepping on the back of no one's heel. No one's stepping on him. Obviously, he's too good looking. So people are like, oh, let's move around this guy. So, and another thing I noticed too, and I don't know if you guys catch this, anywhere Brad Pitt goes is not good for the people that are there. Okay. First, it was Tomas's family. Maybe they would have been fine, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe not. But after he leaves, I mean, they get it.
He goes to Jerusalem, chaos ensues.
He goes to Jerusalem, and even that before he went to the army base or that base, that military base, they were fine. They had kind of a whole thing going. They had a whole process. Then he comes there with his phone ringing and his hair gel attracting people or whatever. He's, his cologne, and then Jerusalem. And I love you say about the 10th man when he's speaking to that doctor or like that the guy. He's like, the guy's like breaking down also like the logic of why, hey, we wanted to get ahead of this. We as Israelis, we have experienced all kinds of issues over the history of man. So when we hear something's happening, we're not going to be caught with our pants down. Like we're not going to be caught by surprise. But this was one of the best set pieces. And then the next one we're going to talk about, I think, was like one of the most, actually, every scene after this was extremely tense. They just all build on each other. So you'll get into them.
It definitely is like Jack had said, this is like a video game. Because, this is like, oh, this is the Jerusalem level that you got to beat. And it's like, oh, you have a player 2 is, what's her name? Sagan.
Yeah.
And she's awesome. And then he just chops her arm off or chops her hand off. And it's so great though, because it's like, you got to think fast. Do you want to be dead or do you want to be missing a hand? And this kind of makes her a little bit more badass with no hand. But I thought it was cool, like showing this scene too, because you're kind of learning more as you go throughout when you get through all these levels. And like you guys said, when Brad Pitt's running, he's just kind of looking back, but he does see the old man and he does see the young boy, and he's kind of like, okay, trying to figure, as an audience, you're kind of figuring it out with him.
Yeah. So we, on the plane, Brad Pitt is bandaging Sagan. While bandaging Sagan, Brad Pitt starts putting all the pieces of the virus together, and he redirects the flight to Cardiff, where a WHO facility is located. But zombies find their way onto the plane, and when all seems lost, Brad Pitt just flips the chessboard and blows a hole in the plane. And while they crash land, both Sagan and Pitt survive and walk to Cardiff and the WHO facility. But being out of contact means the
sorry.
people on the boat think he's dead, and that means his family is kicked off.
Poor Matthew Fox.
I'll say now, I know that there's a lot of unbelievable. There's a lot of this is the part where there's a lot of things like, wait a minute. Like, so first, like, and I'll start with a very simple thing. He keeps saying, "Hey, I know what's going on with the zombies," and like, well, okay, what is it? No time. Direct me somewhere. He's like, okay, can I talk to the pilot? Yeah, you can. And he's like knocking on the door, and on the other end, the guy's like, why you wait for the pilot? Can you tell me what is happening with the zombies? Like, just say this is the plan. Why aren't you telling people? Why are you keeping this to yourself? Come on, Brad Pitt, share some information. Quit being the hero here. That drove me nuts.
He wants that recognition.
I have a problem. I love this scene. This might be one of my favorite scenes in the film. But you mean to tell this zombie that was hiding? I don't know where it was hiding.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like
Come on.
Yeah.
Like in a cabinet or something.
Yeah, he was like in a cabinet or something, like where I guess they have food or something. You mean to tell me on this long flight she didn't already do like I haven't been on the plane in a while, Andy. What do they call it? Row service?
The pre-flight check.
No, yeah, pre-flight check. But yeah, when they're serving drinks or peanuts or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how did come on? This zombie wasn't making any noise or nothing before then.
And to your point, the pre-flight check. Why is this stewardess still working? Doesn't she know the world has ended? Why is she still? She's not getting a paycheck.
Still doing the announcements.
They're not going to direct deposit her paycheck. Like, what is she doing? Like, just survive, lady. But she's still like, oh, let me go get some blankets for the people in aisle 12. Like, what are you talking about?
As we're about to land the plane, too. At this point, you ain't got no blanket yet. You're not getting one.
Yeah.
So you got to blame the dog, really.
Oh,
yeah, they should have that dog on a leash because if the dog went over there snooping,
the dog was the only one that knew anything was, unusual.
The dog should have survived that.
I'm sure he.
Brad Pitt threw a look. We are bearing the lead here. You said it, Jack. He threw a grenade in a plane, and it just so happens just to blow a hole in it.
Yeah,
like just a hole big enough. Like, shouldn't that thing been like capsized at that point?
And the only survivors happen to be the two main characters.
And the Chihuahua. I'm sure the Chihuahua is fine, Jack.
Yeah, I'm sure the Chihuahua just glided down like a flying squirrel.
Yeah. Its cape came off. And,
But like,
wait, where did he have the grenade? Do we know that? Like, he was just traveling with a grenade.
I think
probably could have used that earlier.
He pulled it off of Sagan.
Yeah, Sagan. Negan.
I feel like they could have used those grenades when the zombies were overtaking the Jerusalem. Like, maybe use some grenades during that time.
It was a little grenade. It was like a little grenade. It was a little cute grenade. Because like I said, it just made a hole big enough to like
how did he
suck
know?
all of the, it was a suck zone. It just created a suck zone.
That's
a throwback for you guys.
There you go.
Was a suck zone.
The suck zone.
The suck zone was cool though. It really did suck them out right away. That's like a big fear of mine for some reason. Flying. Like if somebody does open that thing. Like open the hatch. I've sat in the emergency row and they're like, "You're good to be here." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." But then I like think about it. If it really happened, if the zombies came on, I would just be screaming, "Ah!" Because once you pull that thing, everybody gets sucked out, right?
Yeah, like I said, this because it wasn't like the plane crashed and like slid gracefully in any way.
Yeah.
It was like it blew to pieces, and Brad Pitt's like literally like hanging upside down, but he's like, "Oh. Shucks, you almost got hurt."
Well, no, Sagan she had no like she just came out like she just came from, I don't know, like she had a blanket around her.
Yeah.
She didn't look like she just got off a flight that just like blew to pieces once it landed.
Well, Brad Pitt had like a rod in his stomach, right?
Yeah.
Stick in it.
Of course.
And then like he's fine.
Yeah.
You notice that like all of a sudden they just cut to he's at Who and he's like, "Hey guys."
Yeah.
Didn't you just have a rod in your stomach?
He's got a Band-Aid in him.
I don't think so. Just throw a little vodka on it. You'll be fine.
Just a little gauze.
That part was great though. When
that was great.
When they're drinking the little vodka bottle.
I kept thinking she was not drinking fast enough. If I had my hand cut off and they were about to do that, and he's like, because she's like taking little sips of this thing, I'd be like, "No, give me yours."
Yeah.
All the others.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what did she say? Are you a doctor? He's like, no.
no, I'm Brad Pitt.
Oh, okay.
Same.
In that case.
It's okay. I used to work for the UN. I can do anything. So that aside, so now the family's been kicked off of their ship. We get to the final part of the movie. Brad Pitt wakes up and is patched up, and after some back and forth with the doctors, he says he thinks that giving himself a deadly virus that already has a cure for it would make him invisible to zombies. Unfortunately, of course, the viruses are on the other side of a wall of zombies. So they go in, and a tense sneak scene occurs that leaves us with just Brad in a vault and Dr. Chatterteeth.
That guy was terrifying.
Yes, he was.
Dr. Chatterteeth.
Brad picks a random cootie to give himself, and it works. A quick Pepsi break later, Brad Pitt walks to glory. They use the information to make a vaccine, which helps humanity fight back. The movie ends with our war has just begun, making me think that this was meant to have a sequel at some point. This is kind of the end of the movie. Basically, as we've been alluded to, Brad Pitt finds out that zombies don't want to eat sick people. They only want to eat fresh people.
Yeah.
Which
They
I guess
need a
makes
healthy
sense.
host.
Which I guess makes sense why they don't eat each other. Now that I think about it, but I'll be honest. I remember thinking this ending didn't do it for me. If I'm totally honest with you guys, Andy. Now you've seen the movie. You've listened to the book. How did you feel the end of this movie went for you?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like it did seem like it reminded me sort of that GoldenEye James Bond video game where you kind of like got to move through like this place and go through the cylinder and whatnot. I did think it was, like we're saying, Brad Pitt's some sort of superhero, but they're all getting chased by zombies. He decides to go the other way. Everybody else there knows the design of the building, knows exactly where they need to go, but he's like, no, follow me. I'll be fine. And then he just starts running. I'm like, you don't know where you're going. This is your first time here. And then he just kind of like magically knows what to inject himself with. I was about to say it's a little hard to believe, but this is a movie about zombies. So,
well, that's kind of the catch to it. You love it. It's great suspense because they're watching him on a camera and he's looking at it and trying to go through all these little vials. If I'm not mistaken, he injected himself with more than one thing, right? Or am I wrong? I was watching this late last night, so that's kind of the whole point where he's like, I love that thing at the end when he says, "Tell my family I love them."
Yeah.
Because he's about to just inject himself with like a few deadly viruses. So it was like H1N1. Because they even talked about it like in the radio part of it, like, society has found a vaccine that's a mix of this H1N1, this, that. It was like 3 or 4 different diseases, viruses, to serve as a vaccine / camouflage. The thing that I read about it, it's funny you say that, Jack. This was not the initial ending. So this was the ending that was the big reshoot and rewrite. They had Damon Lindelof come in to help with the first act and the second act. So even that first act, the way like it first starts in those first 15 minutes, I don't think that was initially an initial script or initially been shot. And in the last act, it was going to be more so kind of like a big war type thing after Jerusalem. So just really all action set pieces, but they thought it was just a little too much. And also it's going to be too expensive. So they said, we want to have a smaller, more intimate.
It was an interesting idea though. Cause even thinking about that, like Brad Pitt, what's on his on his forearms? Isn't it like a bunch of magazines tied together? So he's like a fit. I thought that was kind of interesting though, because in most zombie movies, you go right into like, if this movie was with like Bruce Willis and Vin Diesel, they'd have like, and The Rock, they'd have these like crazy futuristic guns and like, battle, shields and machetes and whatnot and samurai swords. But I did think it was actually interesting for it to like shift into like this, where it's like a much smaller, scene, like set design and stuff. Yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting
It
choice.
worked for me. I remember when I first saw the movie, I thought I was kind of on the same page as Jack. I was like, oh, well, that kind of is ending with a thud. But as I was watching it now, it's just more personal and,
Yeah.
intimate. And I think that worked for the film. I mean, obviously the studio was happy with it because it was either that or just more all out action,
Yeah.
so to speak.
I
Now,
liked it
maybe
too.
at the very, very end, that was a little like, okay, the last 5 minutes or so.
And to your point, James, I should say this time around it felt better than it did. I was thinking more when I saw it in theater. It felt kind of like, oh,
Yeah,
that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I have
But
an
I
important
think-
question for you guys, and I think this is very important for any really zombie genre to know. At the end, there's kind of a question, or right before the end. Fire axe, baseball bat, or crowbar? Which weapon do you guys take?
Oh, I'm swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
Baseball bat.
Because remember, those are the three weapons they all brought, and they were like, "Which one do you want?" And they said they all have their merits.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I love that because when it gets down to it, it's almost like you remember the movie Predator, like with Schwarzenegger. For him to defeat the bad guy, he had no guns at that point. So it even breaks up it makes more tension because what kind of tools do you have to defend yourself? They're more kind of more primal stuff. Because if you're gonna, it's easy to shoot something, but like you get a baseball bat or an axe, an axe I feel like has to be more accurate. A crowbar, tie iron, or a baseball bat, as Andy would say. I do both. Can I do both? Can I hold them?
I go crowbar. I think it's a good mix of everything. With the axe, I think it's one hit, one kills. But if you got two zombies, you're only going to get one before you can like reel up and get the next swing.
But you might get stuck. That's the thing I'm scared about. If you got like 3 zombies attacking you, that crowbar might stick into a brain. And then you're like, the other guy's trying to eat you while you're pulling the crowbar out of a brain.
I don't know if the baseball bat's going to hit hard enough. Like,
what if the baseball bat? Well, hold on. Here's the problem with the baseball bat, though. But what if the bat's juiced? Look, I don't play baseball, but what if the bat's juiced or something? What if he hits something hard enough? Doesn't it? What happens if it breaks?
Well, then it turns into a spear, right? Because you got
that's correct.
But
what if it's just the nub?
Then you can take on a vampire.
You just have the nub.
Whatever the case, us 3 would just be hanging out in the lab watching him on the camera.
Yeah. We wouldn't have went in that hallway. That
if there's an intercom, hey Brad, looking good, bud. Looking good. We'll be here.
Good. While we're eating jerky or whatever.
Yeah, why didn't they have were cell phones not working or something? Like, couldn't they have talked to him? Like, hey, take this. We'll talk to you from the control room, and we'll be like, hey, mix this with this.
Got it, AirPod guys, would have been perfect then, but maybe it's the apocalypse, so all the cell phones. Well, no, actually, they aren't all down. But he had like a special old brick phone. Yeah, and that seemed like the only working phone
because that was like a satellite phone.
You'd have thought they would have had some kind of.
They didn't use cell phones at all. I was trying to remember how big cell phones were in 2013.
They were pretty big.
Yeah,
it's iPhone had been out at least for.
Were they? I'm very bad with years, by the way. Like I don't remember stuff like that. So
yeah, iPhone had been out since like 08 or 07 or something. Yeah,
because they never once go to a phone to look for news or
you're right,
figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Not even they never even glance at one.
So do we even know what year it was? That actually could be like a good move because then it's like, like sometimes you see old movies and you see a cell phone and you're like, oh man, this is super dated. It's like an old flip phone. So maybe it was a good idea for them to just show you that one clunky phone and that was it.
But that clunky phone, like I said, I think it's like a military satellite phone.
Yeah.
I think it was more, it wasn't meant to be like a normal phone. But I think it sounds like there's a lot of problems with the filming of this, but it's really felt like they wanted a sequel from this, and with the whole our war just began. And it makes me wonder if they've tried to do it, if they're like, nah, that was just a headache, or if like Brad Pitt was like, no, thank you, I don't want to do it again, or what the situation was.
Yeah, I know there's been like talks of trying to get a sequel, but as far as I know, there's nothing upcoming. But it definitely gave you that, and I think that was the whole point. Like it felt like to me, it felt like a movie that was the first of one or at least a couple sequels, because it kind of like led you to a certain spot and then you're like, okay, let's see what else happens. Because even in the book, like it's all these other people that went through it are telling their stories from all over the world.
Exactly.
So to me, World War Z, we didn't even get to see we saw some of the world, but not I mean, there's so much that's probably happening all over the world. It would have been interesting to see in part 2, like, oh, let's see what happened in, other cities.
Yeah. So now at this point, if they made another one, it would just be a reboot. I'm sure they wouldn't even make it a sequel.
Well,
anymore.
and I think, like, at least when I was watching, like, that last scene, like, it's very tense with all the quiet. They're trying to be quiet, and then I think one of the guys accidentally hits some metal thing or something. But it made me think of The Quiet Place. Have you guys seen that,
Mhm.
Quiet Place?
Yeah.
That movie's freaking awesome. Like, the way that has, like, you're just super, like, nervous about any type of noise. So I think this
She
movie
gives birth to a baby in a bathtub.
God.
Yeah.
That
Trust
movie is
me,
so
there's no
intense.
way. Like, but yeah, I mean, you talk about like crazy tension with quietness. Yeah.
Fun movie. I enjoyed it. Any final before we get into our closing segments? Any final thoughts on the movie, guys?
My only final thoughts is I loved it. But no, I felt like Brad Pitt kind of lacked his usual charisma in it. I was kind of waiting for a little bit more. He's kind of funny in most movies, so I was sort of missing that a little bit. I think was my only knock on his performance. But I like zombie movies, and I love this Brad Pitt guy, so I enjoyed.
Win, win, win. Any Jay Shippey too? Any thoughts?
I am. Yeah, it's just a good movie. I was watching this late at night, and normally it takes me a few days to finish movies now. Because of my schedule.
dad.
But yeah, as a dad, it takes me a few days. And normally it's because I'm falling asleep in the middle of them. But this one took me just 2 days watching them late at night. I watched them in 2 halves, had my dad jeans on and my coffee. This movie's good. This is a good action zombie film, and they do a favor to the audience by just keeping the tension and action set piece, and it doesn't seem unearned. Because sometimes in movies like this, when you have a lot of action in it, it's just set pieces, but there's no like really good through line or plot going. So you're just watching for explosions and this and all this kind of stuff. But it's a good movie, and it was a great film for Brad Pitt. I'm assuming this is probably his first horror movie. So it's always really cool to see like movie stars like this do a movie like horror, when they play with different genres later in their careers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I thought they did a good job of kind of keeping it sort of simple too. Like it didn't have to get too complicated. There's some movies that do this that you're like, huh, and you kind of get lost in like, and wait, this happened and then there's this backstory. But they kept it fairly like simple, like for you. So you could kind of be like, cool, yeah, I kind of understand what's happening. And now I'm ready for the second one.
They did a great job of balancing, explaining what's happening without overloading us with pretend science. You know, they didn't have to be like, well, the chromosomes of the blah, blah, blah mixed in with the biological feedback. And, they just
biological feedback.
I don't know. You know what I mean?
And the way they got the vaccines to people, I thought was so great. They just fly them out of a plane, just drop them.
Yeah, they're dropping them like food.
So that does it for this one. Andy, let's do this Kevin Bacon.
You want to just do it? You want to just do it for me?
In one.
I was going to overcomplicate.
This is like the
things,
Queen's
but...
Gambit. Like I already know you won. You already have your moves.
Yeah, I debated trying to make this more complicated, but let's just get down to business. Brad Pitt was in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
There you go. So now that does it for 2013. Next week we go to 2014. Just Andy Rossi. What are we watching for 2014?
Live, Die, Repeat. Edge of Tomorrow. Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt.
Another hunk.
Hunk.
And Emily Blunt's not bad either.
Yes. Yeah. Just a really underrated movie, I think, because the name messed this one up.
I'm excited.
But that'll be fun. James, 2015 in 2 weeks. What are we doing?
2015. I wanted to do San Andreas Fault with another hunk, The Rock, but we're going to go with another, the hunk, Mr. Dwayne Johnson. But we're going to go another route. I saw this movie once in the theaters, and I fell asleep in it. I think we see a through line.
Good start. I'm excited.
Yeah, good start. Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, I love love this movie. I'm
Nice.
so excited.
I need to see it again because I
Tom
know it's a
Hardy.
good movie. I just didn't finish it. So.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. 2016, in 3 weeks, we're going to change the tone a little bit here. We're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to watch an animated movie called Sausage Party.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. It's the Seth Rogen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I have no idea.
I haven't either.
Me neither. I heard it's good.
Let's do it.
So that should be a fun one. That's right. Next week, Edge of Tomorrow. Following week, Mad Max Fury Road. And then we go to 2016 for Sausage Party. That does it for us. Just Andy Rossi, where can the world find you online and all things the world?
At Just Andy Rossi.
And then Jay Shippey too. Where can the world find you online?
At JShippy2 on Twitter and at JEShippy2 on IG.
What about you, Real Jack Farmer?
Yeah, you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That does it for us. We'll see you guys for the next one when we talk all about that Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt classic. Live, Die, Repeat, or should I say